I think over 2 days you must have heard quite a bit about sustainability. And everybody speaks on sustainability the way that they look at it. I look at sustainability in a different manner, and let me tell you, I just came from a function where His Excellency was supposed to come and address Asian Foundation. Asian Foundation was the one I created about 30 years back, and this was the 30th anniversary that we wanted to make sure that the message is still going. The idea that 30 years back was that the Asian community, which is not more than about 80 to 100,000 people in this country, but they're divided into various communities. And each community does a lot of work for the community. And they do well in their businesses, either they're manufacturers, the retailers, the technicians, technical businesses, or all kinds of businesses that they do, construction and others. So I had thought that I would like to, when I have to tell the President, what should I be telling? I should be telling him I just want to repeat that because I didn't get the chance to repeat, I didn't get the chance to tell him, but I'll write to him anyway. The first thing is that I understood that you talk about good, bad, and ugly. I think that the Kenya went through an ugly period during the election. And then again, a bad period when the second time that the voting took place. And finally, the government came along. First thing is, I think that the sustainable development probably will start this time after, 50 plus years of independence, that there was a policy now created and saying that we want to concentrate on 4 items. One is employment and industries. Second is food security. Third is health. And fourth is housing. I think that was a very, very sound and a clear message so that they're not mixed up with so many other things. That here, these 4 sectors will take a priority. And priority in the sense that we need that priority. We need the priority of investments in industry because today, at least 3 million plus youth, from university graduates, dropouts, trained artisans, dropouts, secondary school passed and dropouts and primary school level. 3 million youth are pacing streets of Kenya. And every January, another 900,000 to 1 million youth comes on the market. And what is the capacity to absorb? The capacity to absorb is so little. And it's unbelievable that they never pay attention to how we are going to absorb it. When we really look at the statistics, there are 2 million people in the organized sector. And the central government employs about 750,000. And now the 47 counties, maybe let's talk about another 250,000. So altogether there are 3 million. Now to expect a 3 million employment to absorb the 3 million walking around and plus 1 million coming along is not possible. And so unless we can start thinking in a different direction and making very sure that we can create employment for these people and the person who creates 10 people's employment, give me a red carpet. This is not being done because there are so many other priorities around us. What we really require today, and that's the first priority, is our youth, because it cannot just go on like this. And to do that, how are you going to employ them? And there are various ways that one can employ. And basically, when people get employed in China and people get employed Indonesia, in India, and other places, they're not small populations. They're huge populations. And still they get employed. Not employed by somebody else, but employed themselves even. But the whole process of thinking in the correct direction has never been there. It's just a lip service. Create employment. Create employment on what? Unless there's a basis of creating an employment, it will not work out. So there was one priority area that they've selected. The second priority area, which at least I told these people who were there today, there were about 200 plus Asian community present today. They were just only a portion of 1 million people to 100,000 people to 80,000 people, in between, maybe 90,000, maybe 100,000, something in between. And this 200 probably has almost 40 to 50% of the employment of the organized sector. You've got to find out where it's going to happen, who is going to do it. And if you just don't think about it, things will never work. The second thing is about the housing. We have been year after year after year after year, and I'm not talking short years, I'm already in business for 68 years. It was nice that this morning I retired from a company which I served for 56 years as the chairman. But you cannot build housing unless and until there is a framework on which you can get working. There's no framework whatsoever. And year after year, we just hear the ministers keep on coming, talking about the same housing, and giving the promises to the guys who are 40 years old or 30 years old when in independence. They're already on their dying bed, and they've never seen the housing. The question is that who plans all this? The planning is so poor. It's consultancy. That doesn't work. We've got to put up and find out how it happened. If you went to Nairobi, Mombasa, every township, 50 to 60% of the houses are built by Asian community. So we need to understand that there is a necessity. If you want to produce something and get it going, then you got to concentrate on issues that are there. I'm not very much in agriculture, so I can't speak very much about agriculture. But one thing I can speak about agriculture is, and I think she just alluded about water. We've been promising water that will give a fresh water to everyone. And it's already, I don't know how many, 50 plus years, we have not been able to do it. But the rest of the countries in the world has proved that they can at least, when the rain comes, when the flood comes, today, this time I think the rain has flooded, and I think almost all big rivers have broken their banks. But we have no capacity to hold it. Unless we are clear about the whole attitude and saying that this is what we want to do, that cannot be done. And if you can conserve water, then agriculture is a possibility. The world is now changing on the agriculture that we used to do on the big farms. It's also changing. And you can grow them under greenhouses, and you can feed yourself, not everything, but you can feed about 60, 70% out of the greenhouses. Who is prepared to think about this? This traditional way of thinking is not going to help us. So I can't make very many other comments on that, except the job creation and housing. And we can employ as many people as we want. But there has to be a decision. Now the three things came out of this president's new election. First thing, he came out and said, I want these 4 projects. Industry, because of the employment. agriculture, food security. Third, housing. And fourth was health. Unless we create some systems behind this, and I wanted to tell the President that, please, you should have included the fifth one. And the fifth one was environment. Majority of the countries who grew this time, if you go to Southeast Asia and every other country which has grew, now they are trying to find the solution for environment. Why can't we start thinking right from the day one? So I wanted to tell him that, please, Your Excellency, include the fifth one as an environment, because this is a necessity. Now, unless we attempt and get the result on 3, 6, 9, and 12 months, how much have we progressed? How much have we done? Have we achieved or not? And be ready to kick people if they have not been able to achieve. Unless you do that, it's not a possibility. Because this is not a small problem that we're talking. 4 million youth pacing streets is not a joke. And yet, they always take it very easy. Yeah, okay, fine, thank you. It's okay, we'll do it next year. No, it cannot be done next year. Let me give another example on the ministries of the agriculture. I don't know, for years and years I've been seeing the people going away to Israel to seeing that, oh my God, in Israel, so much things that they can grow where nothing grew, ever. They come, they wonderful talk about it, then say, but we must do it. And to date, not a single place you can find an experimentation, even the farm, even a place where they can grow. And we got kilometers of land lying around, doing nothing. But who is the one who is going to guide? And I think that the biggest thing that came out of it, and what you are saying, that after the ugly bed and the best will come out of this, is that a determination that we want to do something. And unless we decide that we want to do something, everything else remains in the air. And it's nice to talk about air, but it means nothing. So my saying is that inclusive can only be that if you go to the slums of this country, Nairobi, Kibera, there are many slums over here. If you go to those slums and find out, even today our children there are going to sleep with $500,000 a day. Who cares? Tell me, who cares? Unless we all decide and say that we want to find an inclusive, that the poverty, which has gone so deep now, you can be poor here, but you can be poor here. When you come poor over here, there's nothing more left. Unless and until we start, that poverty can only be reduced by creating wealth. And creation of wealth can only be done by putting people, pressurizing them, not just giving and saying that, yes, we'll go one cabinet meeting in a month. Is that going to resolve it? No. We need to find solution of inclusive unless we make a change in our total approach. And you see in here we got the African words. You ask anybody and say, Abariyako, Nehendelea. For 60 years you've been hearing Nehendelea. Nehendelea what? And when you really deep ask, did you had a proper meal? Did your children had a proper meal? Then you'll find out where we are. So anything that we plan, inclusive, if it does not start with the bottom up, doesn't work. And all we are doing is on the top, make the dressing on the top and forget about the bottom. The bottom is where we need to hold hands and create them and make them happen. And it can be done. There are various examples of poverty elevation that has gone through, but where is the government support? That that support is not there. Let me give you a classical example. I have a plant in what first they told us that you put a manufacturing plant away from the cities. So we chose a place about 35 kilometers from Mombasa. And today we've got one of the top class, 3 plants over there, world class, I would say, in terms of equipment, in terms of manufacturing capacity, everything. It took us 10 years even to get a piece of land. The machinery rot outside for 4 years from the port. Where can you get this kind of? I think the determination is not only from the top. The determination is from the bottom to ask for it. And if you cannot create our people to ask for it, we'll never get an inclusive possibility. But the two things also came out very well this time. After his explanation about that he wants these 4 areas to be really concentrated, and then he came back and said, yes, I want to ask my forgiveness. First time in the history of this country, the top man has gone to the population and says, I'm sorry. I'm asking your forgiveness. A statement which proves the humility. And that status must be celebrated in every school, that please don't hold into yourself. So I think that there is an inclusive possibility all the way through, but it requires a lot of effort and a lot of guts. And you individually, how much can you do? When you think about it, in the evening when you go home and you find it out that how much can I do, it's easier to go to sleep than to think how I can resolve. And resolution is in our hands. It's not somewhere else outside. Neither China, neither United States, neither Berlin, neither Germany can help us in removing what's wrong in us. The wrong in us starts with realizing that there is wrong, number one, and number two, how fast we can remove it. And so with that, I think that you must have heard otherwise more literacy, more written messages. As a layman after so many years, I think it can be done. It can be done.